Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Today, I'm very excited. We have Stacy joining us. Stacy is a new carnivore and she's had significant results. She's also a mental health therapist. So today, we're going to get into her successes on from the carnivore diet. And again, fighting cancer is all about GKI, and any sort of ketogenic diet works well with fighting cancer. For me, the best results have come from carnivore diet because of the high animal fats and because of reduction of inflammation from vegetables. Although I do have the odd vegetable, I really should cut it out, but we grow a lot of them in the garden, and they are natural with no pesticides added. But there's internal stuff going on. But anyhow, Stacey's a mental health therapist. She has some great ideas on how, while eating, to use your mind to imagine healing, which is very interesting. Um, and she also has a channel on art, so we'll maybe talk about that, and you guys can check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. But hey, Stacy, how's it going today?
Hi, Jason. It's great. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining me. So you began your carnivore journey in January. So if
I
you want to
did.
talk about, yeah, that's exciting. You want to talk about the lead up to that and what made you take such a radical change in your life?
Well, I was diagnosed with my sixth autoimmune disorder, which I'm just going to say, I think it's all one. I don't really believe there's six different things. I think my body is in a situation where, it lands where it lands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just had enough. And my son, actually, funny enough, had began carnivore, and I thought he was crazy, of course. And I didn't believe I could do it, to be honest. So I just said, all right, I'll try it for 30 days. What have I got to lose? Um, and I began and never looked back. I'm now like almost into my sixth month here, and I don't ever foresee that I'm going to go back. I mean, I could, I suppose. Maybe, everybody talks about it being an elimination diet. Uh, so maybe later in life I could decide, oh, I want a little to, try something else in my diet. But I don't see it. I'm pretty strict, except for I do have the occasional, I shouldn't say occasional, the morning coffee. But I am trying to pare that down. I just don't want to I don't want headaches. Um, so I didn't want to go cold turkey. I just wanted to slowly wean off of it. But other than that, I eat bacon and eggs in the morning for my breakfast. I have any number of things for my dinner, including the coveted ribeye steaks. Um, but we do eat chicken. I'm doing this by myself. My husband and I live together in this house, so he's still eating more keto style. Um, he says he can't give up his vegetables, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So, but it's been the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. Crazily enough, I haven't missed anything, and I think so. The keto diet didn't really work for me, and I think that's because I was having too much of those look-alike things. So maybe the almond flour sort of desserts every now and then, and that kind of stuff. Um, and I couldn't get my blood sugars, especially my morning fasting blood sugars. Like, I was always 110 or something like that. And then I started the carnivore diet, and probably within the month, I was, at 95 in the mornings, which is still pretty good. And I'm trying to remember what my latest. So I just in April did a full um, blood test. You know, all the things, my yearly test, and so the one number that changed was my triglycerides did go up a little bit. So they were 85 and they're 100 now. I don't have a good reason for that. Maybe I just had a fattier meal the day before. I don't know if it changes that fast. Um, but other than that, I mean, everything, yes, of course, my cholesterol has gone up, but not significantly. It doesn't look terrible. Um, but I heard one of the doctors say, you need cholesterol to heal. And that totally relaxed me on the whole cholesterol thing. So, but my
Dr.
other
Anthony
number.
Dr. Anthony Shafee says that a lot, that
Oh, he
and
does?
cholesterol is natural in the system. Dr. Anthony Shafee.
Yeah, and I've listened to him too, so that's probably where I heard it. But again, it's been the easiest thing I've ever done. So right now, the greatest thing that has happened is that blood sugar um, kind of normalizing, which is good. I needed that, right? I haven't really lost weight. I've definitely lost inches. And my husband, who lives with me, which is really hard, um, when you live with somebody, it's hard to see changes, right? But he one day said to me, "Wow, you look really good. Like your hair's looking great, your skin's looking great." And I was like, "Really?" So he's noticed the changes, you know? So those things are happening. But I suspect that my autoimmune diseases, which I'd like to get less inflammation in my body, I'm hoping over time or over a year. I've heard many of the people that everybody watches online, Bella's one of them, Bella Steak and Butter Gal, say that it can take a good amount of time for autoimmune to kind of correct itself. So I figured I'll give myself a year and see how I feel at the year.
That's awesome. So have you seen any sort of reduction in inflammation in your body from the autoimmune disorder?
Yes. So I have swollen ankles. I've had swollen knees. My ankles have been much less swollen, my feet in general. And that's from rheumatoid arthritis. I was diagnosed with Sjogren's disease, which is a form of dryness. So your eyes are dry, your mouth is dry, everything's dry, your skin. So my skin's improving quite a bit. I've had less mouth dryness and definitely less eye dryness. So I am seeing those little corrections. Um, my numbers weren't impressive. Now, I had only been on it for 3 months when I did my last blood work. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens. I'm going to do one at the 6 month, 9 month, and a year, just to see what the results are. But I would say definitely my clothes fit weight, even though like not a lot of weight, maybe 1 or 2 pounds. Um, I would say my clothes are, I have pants that are way too big for me, even though the weight has not really changed. So definitely lost inches, and I wasn't measuring myself, so I am now.
Well, not only that, you're probably maybe building some muscle mass. Are you doing anything to stimulate muscle mass while you're on this diet? Because a lot of people naturally put on leaner muscle mass even while they're on the diet, which would weigh more than fat. So you're losing inches in the fat, but you could be building leaner muscle mass
Right,
underneath.
and I do a short workout 3 times a week, with free weights, and body weights, that kind of workout, and I walk. I have a dog, we just got a rescue in November, so she needs to be walked, and we have a park close to us, so I take her on walks, so, anywhere from 20 minutes to whatever she can tolerate, because she's a rescue, you never know.
Good for you. That's awesome. Do you feel stronger?
Um, yeah, I feel way different. I can do things that were really difficult, like standing in the kitchen cooking or standing in the kitchen cleaning, for instance. That was always I could do a few minutes here and there, and I definitely can be in there for, an hour at a time. We
Mhm.
recently did some construction in our condo. We live in a condo, and so we recently put in new floors. We didn't do it, somebody did it for us. But once I put the new floors in, I said to my husband, "Ooh, we gotta paint. It looks terrible." So the painting took a little bit out of me. That was like, but I probably could endure more than I could have prior to this, is my feeling.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, I feel like this is really, I still, since I've been keto, I've only eaten 2 meals a day. I'm not a breakfast eater. I really never have been. So I've been, lunch and dinner. So I still am only eating that much. And I keep hearing people say about needing to eat enough. And I'm small. I'm only 5'1", and so I think that I'm possibly not eating enough, so I'm trying to get an extra meal in there as often as I can. Some days I don't manage to do that, but I try to eat 3 meals if I can now, to try to see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, and I've listened to a lot of the carnivore doctors speak about it, and what they really say is listen to your body. If your body says you're full, you're full. So if your body's telling you you don't need 3 meals a day, who says you do? Like I know Carrie, when I interviewed Carrie, he did 60 days where he only ate 1 meal a day of ribeye steak and had fabulous results. It's mostly
Cool.
important to get high fats from what I've learned. And one of the things you could do with your coffee, I still have a coffee in the morning, but I use it to my benefits. I make it a bulletproof coffee, so I add a little bit of butter and MCT oil. I don't think I'll ever give that up, which is really interesting. When my cancer is growing, I have no taste for coffee. I won't even drink coffee. But when my cancer is shrinking,
Interesting.
I actually have a taste for coffee, and in the last 3 weeks, I went from drinking 1 coffee in the morning to almost 3 coffees all day long, which is really weird, so I got a really good optimism about my cancer shrinking because my body's okay
Awesome.
with coffee right now, yeah. So that's what I don't know, just make sure that you're listening to your body. If your body only wants 2 meals a day, why do you have to have 3, I guess, is the most important.
Yeah. So I try to go with this, right? This whole idea of listening to your body, because I do think that that's really important. But then part of me is like, but do am I not eating enough? Do I need to eat a little bit more, you know?
Well,
So
how do you
whether I
feel? How do you feel on 2 meals?
so I feel okay on 2 meals. It
How do you
doesn't
feel
even
on
bother
3
me.
versus 3 meals? How do you
So,
feel?
well, yesterday we ate breakfast, so it was a day off for us here, right? So we had a late breakfast and it came lunchtime and I didn't really want lunch, so I didn't eat it. So I just ate dinner. So it's depending on what I eat, maybe if I get really full. So we had bacon and eggs in the morning, and then I had a ribeye steak at night. So, um, but I feel good,
Love ribeyes, that's my go-to.
right? Right? Burgers are my other one.
That's that's the most important thing is how you feel. If you Yeah, if you're
Right.
feeling good, just go with it, like, don't force yourself to do more than you can handle. That's the way
Yeah,
I see it.
I think
So
that's
you
good.
spent your career you worked with, oh, is your audio good? Oh, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, my
So
arm's
you
good.
spent your career working, in mental health, therapy. And so you had commented on using your mind when you're eating to also help heal. So maybe we could get into that a little bit. You had posted a comment.
So, well, I'm going to clarify just a little bit. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but I saw your interview with Sean Baker, and it was something that you said. I'm hoping it works, or one of those that made me comment. And in general, my feeling is whatever we're putting into our body. So you can look at that as medicine, your chemo, anything. The best way, so the best thing I think we can do for ourselves is to believe that these things are going to help us, to believe that they're good for us and that they're helping do whatever healing we want to do. And the power belief is so powerful. And I've learned this over my career, really. I mean, you can think yourself into terrible stuff, you know, and that's proved by a placebo effect, right? So people who take drugs that believe it's going to work, whether it's a sugar pill or not, have a response and it's good. And if they don't believe it's going to work, whether it's the drug that they're prescribed or not, you know, or a placebo, then it won't work. So these studies tell us that the belief is very important, really. And Bruce Lipton wrote a book a long time ago called The Biology of Belief. I don't know if you know that book, but so he's talking about this sort of thing, right? He's talking about you have to believe to help your body do the healing. You have to believe it's going to do the healing. So, um, just like food, when you see food, so a lot of people talk about blessing your food before you eat it. So that's one way to do it. Some people who use prayer could use prayer to do it. To be thankful, hunters will sometimes um, take the time to thank their pray for their gifts. Also, that's another way to think about doing it. But when we sit down to eat, anything we're putting in our body, we need to see that as nourishing, as helping us, as being our friend. And if we're not doing that, I think we're doing a great disservice to ourselves. So that was my comment to you.
That's a That's awesome. I'm just making some notes here because I wanted to touch on this. Blessing the food is very spiritual and from the Bible, but what's really interesting about that is the Bible also says that we should have in our sorry, chemo rack my brain. Sometimes I'm slow at recalling certain words that you use every day.
No, no
Um,
worries.
the Bible also says we should practice regular fasting, so whether that be quarterly or semi-annually. And fasting, we now know, is a powerful healing tool to rid
It is.
bad cells or precancerous cells. And when you're doing fasting on the standard American diet, it's almost impossible because you got these sugar highs and lows and crashes, and all of a sudden you're taking away that glucose, which is like a drug. It's like a sudden hit. But when you're doing this from ketosis on a carnivore, keto, Mediterranean, I don't care, pick one diet, fasting is extremely easy. Like I can just fast all day till dinner and not have an issue with it. I can take a few days off and just drink some bone broth. And people are like, that's crazy, but I don't even notice it. I don't even feel that changeover because I do add butter to my bone broth. So my body's still getting its fuel. And then the last note I made was the Bible also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says gluttony is a sin, which is overeating. It's a sin.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know any of the, I've gone through the Bible or whatever, but I don't know about the gluttony part. But yeah, I mean, we're not supposed to eat too much, like the crazy kind of amount that you would eat on a standard American diet, right? Um, we've made food so our body doesn't have to work to process it, and I think that's where the problem is because the foods are so processed for us that there's no work for our body to do, right? It's just kind of going in and coming out. Um,
And you
but
had
when
said
you're
use your mind to imagine the food to be healthy and healing and the medicines you're taking to be working. I actually have a friend that was diagnosed with cancer. They didn't start treatment or anything, and she started meditating and imagining the cancerous tumor shrinking.
Yes,
And they weren't going to do treatment or remove it or anything right away because it was a non-aggressive tumor. But within 3 months at her next scan, because they were monitoring it, it had shrunk by 25% just from the power of her mind. I don't know. That's a true story. That's a close friend. They're not lying. They're not making this up.
there's actual evidence, there's actual studies that you could find that present that same exact information. So they do know that there used to be this saying, it was an ad back in the 70s, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I think they meant it in terms of getting the underprivileged to college. I think it was the United Negro College Fund that was advertising that. But honestly, it's much more than that, right? It's much more than just education. It's just understanding that your mind has this power, I think.
I think you're
So,
absolutely right. You're absolutely
yeah,
right. Like, it's like if you're gonna run a marathon, you have to have your mindset to do it because it's not
yes,
easy. And honestly, you can almost get yourself into like I don't want to say a psychedelic state while you're running, but I used to do long distance
yes,
running. It was a deep meditative state, and your body wants to give up, but your mind can just put one foot in front of the other and keep going, and you can actually do
absolutely.
it. And that's really the power of the mind, and that's evidence right there from my experience, anyhow.
It really is. So when I was young, so I was diagnosed at three 3 years of age with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was in a study, a Harvard medical study at the time. That's how my parents got my medical care. And I remember the doctor at some point. I think I was 7 or 8, and he said to my mother, "You need to take her home, and you need to teach her how to she should never have stairs in her home. She should only buy a one-level home. She'll probably be in a wheelchair by the time she's 35." And I heard that. So that was my first experience with a doctor being negative ever. And from that moment on, I made a decision that I was going to listen to the negative stuff the doctor said because I felt like I knew better. It was my body, right? Even at that young age. And um, from then on, every time I went to different doctors or whatever and they talked negative, I was like, "Nope, you're not my doctor." You know what I mean? You're not my right doctor if you're gonna talk negative to me. I cannot, I can't do it. I don't want to hear it. So, but my mother, so this would have been in the 70s, let's say. My mother, there was a magazine we all used to get called the Reader's Digest. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it, but
So it
I'm
was
too old,
it was
too young for it.
yeah. So it was a digest of all the new books maybe that had come out. I think like the top selling books or whatever maybe. And then they gave you little pieces. That's how you knew what books you wanted to buy to read, maybe. That's what it started it. And my mother gave me this article and she told me to read it. And it was about, I don't even know the book, to be honest. It was about going inside your body, and it might have pertained to cancer, and visualizing your cells doing what they need to do. So now I was young, I was probably less than 10, I'm going to say. And I took that quite literally. And every night, because I laid awake a lot at night and didn't fall right asleep. So every night I didn't know it was meditation. I didn't know what it was, right? But I would lay in bed and I would visualize the cells of my body healing. And I visualized them sweeping up all the junk and discarding it out of my body. So all my cells were working perfect. Now, I'm here to tell you today, I stand here on my own 2 feet, and yes, I've had 6 different diagnoses, but I'm not in a wheelchair. And RA is
Have you had any body parts replaced?
I have not,
No hip
have not.
replacements or nothing. Wow, you should be proud of yourself. That's pretty special. So the
And
power of the mind is
yes,
very, very powerful.
yeah.
That's
So I
um
believe that that thinking is what we need, and I shudder when I go to doctors and hear doctors say, "It's okay to say, "Okay, you're not doing so well here. We need to make changes." But for them to give you bad news, "Oh, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 35." That's not something they need to tell you necessarily. They need to be maybe pragmatic and tell you, "Look, there's a chance that this disease is gonna progress, but here's some things you could do instead." I was looking for those things you could do instead. I had to find them on my own, you know?
I'm
So,
just gonna step in right here. So, because this is a cancer channel, and so I just want to make this very clear to everybody listening. And I'm sure that if you have cancer, or if you don't, maybe this will make more sense. But the worst three words you're ever going to hear in your life is "you have cancer." And when it's advanced stage cancer, these doctors, what they're saying to you in this scenario, if it's advanced stage like myself, is you have 3 months and there's nothing we can really do. We're just going to give you a little bit of chemo and we're just going to try to manage your symptoms. You are palliative, uncurable. You have 3 months to live. You'll be lucky to make it to 12 months. That is what these doctors are telling us as cancer patients. And I know, Stacy, that you're referring this to osteoarthritis, but it's no different because these doctors, they literally tell us that you have no hope. I'm now going on what, 20 months? Yeah, I've lost some weight, but I am the healthiest me I've been in 20 months. And I took the chemo rate and radiation. I did, and I pushed it way farther than I should have. And I definitely had positive results, but I haven't taken that since November. I am taking immunotherapy, which I think is doing absolutely nothing. And using my own mind and my own nutrition, I do believe that I have managed it and it hasn't grown. I have adenocarcinoma metastasized through my whole body. We just found out it's not in my spine, but it's still in my liver, lung, pancreas. It was originally in my esophagus and lymph nodes as well, from my pelvis to my neck, all my lymph nodes basically. Look at me. I'm here. I'm live. I'm going golfing this week. I went golfing last week. I went on a
wow.
bus trip. I'm living my life. So these doctors, I mean, it's horrible. Like to your point, I just really want to drive that home with everybody. And so if you have cancer,
Yes,
it's not maybe you can add to this, but I don't find a lot of these diagnoses is if it's an urgent stroke or heart attack, that's an urgent medical emergency. Get straight to the hospital. But these long-term diagnoses is like you're diagnosed when you're 3, you're not gonna by the time you're 35, you're not gonna be in a wheelchair. That's a psychological emergency. It's not a physical one. Am
right.
I wrong? Like, healthcare can grow and you can do better. So, like, what am I missing here? And these doctors to say that, they can't project that.
Right. And there's the power of the will. I know more and more people who have had diagnoses and they've they're out 2 years, they're out 5 years. I know somebody that's out 10 years. Um, so I read another great book, if I could name drop here, a book called Love, Medicine, and Miracles from Bernie Siegel. And that was
Medicine in
written
Miracles?
Love,
Medicine in Miracles?
Love, Medicine, and Miracles. You can get the audio version on Kindle right now, but I don't think you could get the book unless you find it used someplace. Um, anyways, uh, that was a great book, and he talked about his. So he was a surgeon out of Yale New Haven Hospital, and he talked about his patients that were different and that survived and what they did. Like he researched what these people that had these terrible diagnoses and were supposed to die and what happened, right? And why they didn't die. And, one woman took off and she said, okay, well, if this is it, I just want to garden my whole life. And she built this beautiful garden. And 5 years later, she was still alive, enjoying her garden. She quit her job because she was like, well, I'm going to die anyway. So I didn't want to work. Right. And, somebody else went off and golfed. And, so he looked at all these people and he said, why are they surviving in spite of there's no hope for them? There's nothing we can do for them. And many of them became cancer free. So the idea is our mind is this powerful. It can turn it on and can turn it off. Now, there might be other things that we add to it, right? It might be um, our drugs or our medicines, and it might be food, and it might be all of the above. Maybe we need, we're not this static, just a mind and just a body like we want to think, right? The medical community, even my profession, you know, the mind is here. This is the how we deal with the mind, and the body's there, and that's how we deal with the body. But it's one thing. It's not different. It's not separate, right? So this positive mental attitude goes a very, very long way to helping us heal. And when we're doing all these other things, why not add some good affirmations or some positive thinking or a little, positive uh, meditation or a walk in nature, why not add that to your repertoire for healing? I mean, it should be, but doctors don't tell you that. No one ever told me that when I was at my sickest. So after I had my children, I got super sick. And because rheumatoid arthritis will do this to you. And no one ever said to me, so the drugs didn't happen to work for me, but no one ever said to me, oh, there's these other things that you could try. You know, try some meditations, try some visualizations. Visualizations are very, very powerful, also. So I had to find that on my own because I was determined that I didn't want to be in a wheelchair for the rest. I didn't want to suffer for the rest of my life. That's what it was. I wanted to live. And in a different way though, I wanted to live a good life. I wanted to live every day until the day I was gone, you know. Um, but it's all the same thing, we all have our diseases. Um, but this positive thinking, I think, is the biggest thing we can add, especially when we're not being successful. And if we get depressed and if we're sad and we're hopeless and the doctors are making us hopeless, this is not helping us heal.
It's absolutely
You know,
not. And when you're feeling stressed or anxious, you get a lot of tension in your back and your muscles. It stresses your whole body. It's no way to live. And this actually makes me think. I don't know if you ever heard of one of these or tried one. You can probably find one in your area. Have you ever heard of a float tank or a sensory deprivation tank?
yes, yes.
Have
I
you ever
haven't
tried
tried
one?
one. I have
Oh
not.
my. Okay, so it's like 1,000 pounds of Epsom salts, which draws
Yeah,
out all toxins in your body. Because you're floating on this thick substance, it's like gravity goes away, and then they take away it's a dark bathtub-like tank, and
yeah.
it's insulated so no noise can come in. So there's no noise, there's no visuals, and you lay there and you for me, I think they book it by the hour. I usually do 3 hours.
Wow.
And you go in. Yeah, it's crazy. you go in, and if you have any cuts or anything, you gotta put Vaseline on them because it burns so that's the one thing. And when I was on chemo, I didn't actually wasn't able to use it because I just didn't wanna risk, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
start going back immediately now that I'm thinking about it. And so there's no gravity, there's no visuals, there's no hearing. And the first 20 minutes, you're lost in your thoughts. You keep getting these thoughts that kind of draw you away. Next thing you know, you almost go into like the deepest no, you do. Sorry, you don't almost. You do go in the deepest meditation for if you booked an hour, the remaining 40 minutes that you have ever heard. It's mind blowing how deep you can go.
Uh,
And while you're laying there, your body just releases. Like I've been in there not moving for so long that I felt like my body was moving in the weirdest ways and contorting. And next thing I knew, I released all this stress and
yes.
stuff in my back, and it was so healing. And for my mind, I just felt so calm. So I've done it. I don't know if it's been 100 times. I had a membership at a wellness center that I used to go to right before, up until I was diagnosed with cancer. But I need to start going back now that I think about it because that's an amazing experience and healing. And that's a little different than what you're talking about, but again, that's the power of the mind.
Yes. And also, that's a detox thing that you're doing there. So it's detoxing your muscles. We hold an awful lot in our muscles. We hold the tension and we hold past traumas, things like that in our muscles. I mean, and we know that. So that's also helping that. So,
Absolutely. And that Epsom salts, I don't know what it's doing, but it's doing something because, oh
well,
my god, you ever feel good.
yeah, you need that Epsom salt for your body. It probably ups your ketones, is my guess too. I think it's
It
a
might. I
ketone.
should test it.
Yep. I think it helps your ketones.
I should definitely
So
test it.
so that would hold true, that you feel great afterwards and all that. Yeah,
So do you have a
definitely test
regular
it.
meditative practice yourself? Do you regularly meditate?
I'm bad about meditating, but I do it. Um, so I also trained as a past life regression therapist, which is sorry, I just hit my computer. Um, so I trained with somebody named Brian Weiss, and I did his certification. And so it's a hypnosis sort of thing. So I do more something like that, like a guided sort of meditation. Um, and I like that a lot. Um, I like the the voice of somebody guiding me through steps as I go. Otherwise, I tend to just totally zone out and I don't know what happens. So I was afraid that I was falling asleep, but when I took my certification, he's like, "Oh no, you're not falling asleep. You're just going very, very deep. You go very deep." So I like having a headset on and listening to something. So
So
I
do you
do
know how to
more of it.
hypnotize somebody?
I do. I don't use it as much as I used to, but yes, I do. Yep.
Can you share some powerful experiences you had while hypnotizing somebody or for yourself, like a spiritual amazing experience?
Okay. So when I went to the certification, a friend of mine and I went, we were in school getting our masters. And she was like, "Oh, I'm going to see Brian Weiss and I'm going to get, certified." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And she's like, "Yeah, go with me." So I was like, "Okay." Now I'm a high introvert and I'm very happy home alone in my little cocoon. So when we went there were all these chairs set up, and I'm just going to sit in the back of the room. And she grabbed me basically by the back of the neck and said, "Nope, we're sitting right up front." So we sat right up front, and there was um, a police officer that was involved in 911, I mean, in 9/11, and his partner, and they weren't married partners, they were just partners. And my friend and myself, and we were in the very front row, sitting right in front of this man as he was doing hypnosis with everybody. And so, two stories. So, the police officer had all these weird events, and his friends kept saying, "You're psychic, you're psychic, you're psychic," right? So, somebody set up for him to come to this event, and he got stuck in the in between, as I call it. So he's not alive and he's not dead, but in the in between. Because so as we were guiding him through this meditation, so it was myself and my friend, his partner, him, and Brian Weiss in our little group. And he wouldn't come out of hypnosis. And so Brian was very skillful in getting him to come through. But he sat in the middle and he said, "No, we need to heal. We need this man to heal." And so that's what we're doing here. We're sending him healing. And he had a lot of trauma from this 9/11 event, and we want to prepare him for what's next in his whatever his job was going to be or whatever he was going to do next. And so his experience was quite profound in that he was in the light. He said he was in this light, and there were these spiritual beings talking to him, and they told him exactly what he needed to do for his next steps along his healing journey. So I thought that was quite interesting at the time. We've lost touch with him, so we don't really know what happened to him. Um, but then my own personal one was um, I talked I raised my hand and asked a question, and I said, "I think when I sit in these, meditations that you're doing, I fall asleep," and so he came down off stage, and he looked at me in the eye, and he said, "So, I'm looking for somebody who," and he went through this whole thing, and the whole time he's shaking his head up and down like this to me, and he's like, "Would you come up on stage?" Well, I realize now that he was hypnotizing me, seeing if I was hypnotizable, and he took me back and did a past life regression for me. So my story is that, we all have trauma in our childhood, um, but I didn't have guilt with anybody in my life. I never felt guilt, but I had guilt with my mother, and I could never figure it out. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I went and sought some mental health therapy at that time of my life because it destroyed me. I was close to my grandmother, and I was having a hard time dealing with it. And the woman that I was seeing said, "Well, look, you've gotten to this point. I don't think you need to see me anymore. But when you want to deal with your mother problems, come back and see me." And I was like, "Mother problems? I don't have any problems with my mother." So then this comes to this past life regression. So he gives me this past life regression, and I go back to this time that I was running through a very thick jungle, and I had a baby in my arms. And he said, "Okay, who's the baby, and why are you running?" And I said, "I got chased out of my community." And I said, "I think that I got pregnant from another tribe, um, man, another." And so I think they threw me out of the tribe. And he said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Well, look down at the baby. Who's the baby?" And I was like, "Oh, it's my mother." And he said, "So your mother was your child in this life?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, yes." So he said, "Well, what are you doing now?" I'm like, "I'm running through up this mountain. It's all, greenery, and it's tropical and stuff." And he said, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, I'm being chased by a cat, like a big cat." He goes, "Like a leopard?" And I'm like, "Yeah, a leopard." Or I guess he told me to look at it. "What is it?" And I said, "It's a leopard. I'm scared. My heart's pounding." And he said, "What happens next?" I'm like, "On this cliff, I dropped my baby." "Oh no, I dropped my baby. I killed my baby." And so he brought me out of that because he didn't want me to experience that trauma again, but he wanted me to remember, right? So that was the guilt for my mother. That was the guilt I carried into this lifetime, and it enabled me to heal that. So just going through that past life. So I saw that I actually had this guilt from that lifetime of dropping my mother, even though it was this cat that was chasing us. And I was all by myself, and I dropped the baby over the ledge of or over the edge of a mountain, and she died. So that was a healing step for me in my life, in this current life, which is, pretty interesting.
It sounds very
So
similar. It sounds very similar to a psychedelic experience, spiritual psychedelic experience. It's no secret here that I've got approved for psychedelics on from Health Canada, but hypnosis is very interesting to me because you don't always want to do the psychedelic thing because it's pretty powerful and it's if you do psilocybin or some of these are pretty long acting, and yeah, they might be a little hypocritical, but or not hypocritical, it might be a little controversial in the comments doing psychedelics, but I 80% of my fear of my own mortality is gone after going through a few
Yes.
spiritual awakening type experiences. So hypnosis is very interesting to me. You probably can't do it over the computer, can you?
Well, no, I I don't think so. I mean, I've never really tried, but if you're already a meditator, you're probably already in a position where you easily go to the place you need to be to, um, you know, to be hypnotized. So, I mean, that's basically what you look for. But I think it's much better to have somebody right there in the room with you. There's a place you can look up people that do this kind of hypnosis. Um, So I'll look that name up and give it to you. I don't remember what it's called right now, but if you just look for people that do past life regression, you want to look for people that are maybe certified through somebody good. So Brian Weiss happens to, he's a psychiatrist. In his own story, he also wrote a book at one time, and it was called uh, Many Masters, Many Lives. I never remember. Is it Many Lives, Many Masters, or Many Masters, Many Lives? But his own personal story is a great one. And he he accidentally got his first patient that he took through this. He accidentally brought her through the past life regression part of it. He was just hypnotizing her, and she went back to these past lives. And in this state for weeks and weeks, they would have these sessions together. And this woman came back one time, and he regressed her, and she told him his own story. It gives me chills even talking about it now. And she said, "There's somebody here and he wants me to say hello to you." And it happened to be his son who had passed away when he was a baby.
That's wild.
So I think he was a baby anyways, but his son had passed away and it was something that nobody knew about him, about Brian himself. So that's when you knew there was something to this. And what he found was he hypnotized this woman because she had a lot of mental problems that weren't being cured through therapy or the traditional means, and medication wasn't working. And some other psychiatrists recommended that she see Brian Weiss. And um, this was all by happenstance that this happened. So he didn't know what to do with her. That's why he hypnotized her. And it's very much like those any of those kind of trips that you know you would take, any of those drugs that would, anything that we can take.
Medicines. I call them medicines because they
We'll call 'em
heal.
medicines, right?
I like that
And
word best.
also it's very much like those people that come back from near death experiences. Also, they all have these overarching similarities, these little tiny threads throughout them that seem similar. So you could do it without having a trip, right? So you could do it by hypnosis, or you could do it, um, by having somebody just take you on a visualization. So
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a huge interest to me. So you have an art channel. Maybe we can talk about that for a minute. You want to just have the art channel. You wanted to have that just to help people and benefit people. You want to take a minute to talk about how you're trying to do that with art?
sure. So my art channel is Art Journal Life. So it's about having a journal and putting art in it, basically. I believe that art heals. I used it an awful lot with my clients. So I worked with autistic children and their families. Um, and when you have kids that are not wanting to talk or nonverbal, art really helps a lot because they start making art and your mind is here and they start talking, not looking at you. So you get a lot more information in that scenario. But what I also noticed was art was really healing a lot of my other clients, right? My other clients that were just coming to me for everyday kinds of therapy. So I would have my, drawing materials or whatever out on the table, and they'd be like, "Oh, you let people draw?" I'm like, "Sure." Excuse me. So that's how it began, and then I started a group, and that's where I saw profound changes in women. Basically, we did a women's group, and Some of them had cancer specifically, and some of them had other terrible diseases, or some of them were just like you and I. So it was about 10 women. Um, and I'd take them on a meditation, and then they would draw whatever they saw in their meditation. Basically, that's what we did. So we just had a book, and we had all kinds of art supplies out on the table, and then we just followed that protocol. And it didn't matter. Like, one woman came in and said, I can't draw, I can't do anything. And at the beginning, she just started scribbling. And then after a while, um, I, I taught them one time to find their guide, whatever their guide was. So we went with animals first because it seemed safe. So find your animal guide. And everybody had to come back and draw their animals. But then we shared in our group. And what happened was other women, so somebody would share, and all these women in this group are now supporting each other through this process. "Oh my gosh, look at how beautiful that is. You say you can't draw. That's gorgeous. Look at that drawing that you did." And they start giving them all this positive feedback. So of course, that's what um, that is what started the healing for them. I do believe. So we did all kinds of artwork. So when the pandemic happened, I just brought it to an online space, basically, and I started teaching people how to art, like, not necessarily how to make anything beautiful. That's not what I'm about. So just how to take your journals, open them up, and scribble, color, make something you like, do collage, whatever, as a healing modality, though. So sometimes I take them on journeys. I have them draw the monster in their life. Like, what is, if you have um, let's say you're having headaches. Well, what's the headache trying to tell you? Is there, so I started with monsters. Because I have a tight neck over here. So I said I had a knot in my neck and it was like a monster in my neck. So we drew our monsters and we talk about what that monster meant to us. And what does that have to say to you? Because this is, all mind body medicine, right? What is this image trying to say back to you? So we wrote about
That's
it, we talked
amazing. I
about it.
wish I could, so in a deep meditative state, like, you can actually see fractal patterns and all kinds of
Right.
things you can't explain. It's amazing. I actually just pulled out my most favorite piece of art. I actually bought it. It's the only piece of art I've ever purchased. It's, I'll see if I can put it on screen. I'm just curious to see what you think of this. Let me see if I can do this. Extra camera, share screen. Screen sharing is easiest with 2 monitors. Share screen. I've never done this before on a live, and I'm gonna keep this in there. Its original context. Chrome tab, hide and seek. Select entire screen. Share. Let's see what happens here. Can you see my screen?
I can now. Oh, that's beautiful. It's like the tree of life.
But when you look at it, see the faces and see the girl
Yes.
standing and see
Yes.
this faces, and I wish I could zoom in more on it.
I can see it,
Um Maybe can you I don't oh, maybe I can make my screen bigger. I minused out. Maybe if I make my screen bigger here.
but I can see it all.
Isn't that just like like the baby down here? There's a
Yes.
foot. Like everywhere you look in this, there's faces everywhere. There's babies, there's arms, there's mushrooms built into here. There's a mushroom here. There's all these little beings floating off. It's just a wild piece of art. It's called Hide and
Yes, it is.
Seek. It's a famous piece of art from the 30s. And so isn't that something special?
Wow, that's really special. I love it.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can stop sharing now. It's called Hide and Seek if anybody wants to look at it later on. And if you look up Hamilton Morris on YouTube, he actually does a YouTube video where it's only like 4 minutes long where he goes and sees it firsthand. But yeah, if you're able to meditate and get into these states and the things that you see, like part of my psychedelic experience to heal when I did it was to afterwards was the integration part. The integration part's more important than the actual journey itself, and that was to have a meditative practice. It was to write and journal about it. And if you
Yes.
can draw or do art, like if you could do a painting of your experience and the things you've seen, that would be absolutely fabulous. Unfortunately, I'm no good at art, so I don't get that opportunity. I could try though. I could see. I could try.
This is what I was gonna say, and you just pick what you feel like, whether it would be paint or crayons, or it could be something so simple. You have kids, right? Don't you have crayons around the house? Use
Oh yeah.
crayons, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, you're not looking for a perfect rendition of what you saw, you just want a representation. You just want some kind of memory of it, and then you wanna think to yourself, first of all, beware. Don't let anyone else interpret your art for you, or this is the same if you do dreams, right? Never let anybody else tell you what it means. You really need to know that for yourself because people can misinterpret and upset you, give you wrong information even. So I urge people to be very careful with that. But you look at that art and you say, okay, what does this mean to me? Well, oh, if you look at it, maybe you'll see some images that, hidden in there that you didn't even know you drew, right? Maybe it's a heart. Maybe it's, fractal patterns. Maybe it's, oh, I loved this color. Look at this color. And you're obsessing over the color, maybe. That also tells you something. So it doesn't matter that you can't draw it perfectly. You want to just get some representation down on paper. And the more you do it, by the way, the better you'll get at it anyway. But it's the idea that you're putting something on this piece of paper and then you flip it over and write about it. You could write about the experience. Did they give you questions to ask or did you come up with your own when you did that?
They ask a lot of questions that you speak through after you journal about it and they talk about it. And when you do the meditation, they give you a few different ways of meditating, following your breath work. They give you a recording that you can listen to. They prefer that you end up being able to allow your mind and body just to float off and do it on its own. Um,
Yes.
it's really amazing because I think I can meditate back to my experiences I had and kinda I can't
Yes.
relive them fully, like, it's so profound, and when you get in there, the colors are so bright and vibrant, and there's colors I haven't actually talked on YouTube about my psychedelic actual journeys, I just said that I've done it, but the colors are alive, they speak with you and communicate with you, and
Yes.
there's colors that you see that don't even exist here, like, you wouldn't even see these colors here, it's amazing. It's an amazing, beautiful experience. It can be tough. Like, I mean, some pretty scary places that these powerful medicines can send you to, but I don't know where it's coming from. It's not coming from my mind. I'll tell you
Mm,
that. Like, I did woodworking for a hobby, but I mean, I don't like this is so profound. I don't know where these experiences are coming from it's just like meditating, like, where's that coming from? It's like you're
well,
accessing a deeper spiritual power being. It's really special.
so have you ever seen these mandala kind of coloring books?
Mandel? What'd
Mandala
you say?
coloring books? So I just had I'm looking to see, oh wait, maybe I've got one here. Okay, well, I don't see it. I just had them out too for somebody else. But anyways, mandalas are these circles and they're patterns that um, people create and they color them. So they come in a mandala coloring book. So you can get these online anywhere. Amazon will have them, whatever. But you can color them. And that probably would be healing also for you. So we use those in our group and actually um, we did like a little art show with them, right? Everybody colored them. And they were amazing. Even though somebody else drew this mandala, we were all coloring them different. And then we started talking about our feelings about it. So that's something else that would probably help you, even though you don't feel like you could draw. You could certainly color those, and that's something you could do with your kids probably too.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that for sure. That sounds like a lot of fun. My daughter loves to color and so does my son, but I guess every kid does. Like, they're in
yeah,
that
right.
state of consciousness where they do love it, and honestly, let's be honest, as adults, like, wouldn't we love to be in that state of consciousness again
Yes,
where you could sit there and just that I don't even know, like, times doesn't seem to exist. You just get lost in this
exactly.
beautiful
That's the
place. Like, I
exact
wish
point.
yeah. So, So are you going to be starting a carnivore channel to document your progress, or what
So
are you doing there? You gonna pass on
I
that?
am I started opened it up this weekend and didn't put anything up there. But I'm gonna kind of combine it with the carnivore idea, but also healing. So I kind of want to combine these modalities of healing, um, not just carnivore. Um, but I wanted to start the channel to keep track of my progress, and I'm only regretful that I didn't do it from the very beginning. But I figure before it gets too late, I should do that. You know,
What's the name of your
it's
channel?
um, upward spiral upward. That's it.
Spiral Upward.
I think that's
Well,
what it
we'll put
is.
a link in the description, so people know where to find you on that. We'll
Yes.
also put a link to your art channel. Just
Okay.
text it to me or email it to me, and I'll just put it in when I
Okay.
go to upload the video. We're coming up to an hour. Is there anything else you'd like to add and talk about? Like, time just flew by. Like, I was having a great talk with you. Like, anything
It,
else you want to put in here? Anything else you want to talk about? We can keep going. Like, whatever. Is there anything else you like to put in, or?
I would just say make sure when you're eating, you visualize your food nourishing you also. I think that that's super important. We kind of touched on that quickly, but and again, even with your medications, know that they're, take a breath and sit there for a moment and say, okay, thank you for this medicine being here for me, whatever it is, and allow it to do its job in my body properly. Um, Again, that presence, we have to talk about intention. You have to have intention when you do these things. And then the idea of visualization, like visualizing is really important. Michael Jordan, right? He the famous thing is about Michael Jordan visualized himself making those baskets, right? He visualized how he was going to play a game. That's not hocus pocus. That's real life stuff. And then the other thing I would say is when I was getting my psychology undergrad degree, I did a lot of statistics. I loved statistics. I was one of the crazy people that love statistics. There's no such thing as absolute zero. There's room every day for miracles, and you need to believe in the miracles. They're there, and everybody can have them. They happen. And miracles could be things we overlook, right? It could be, hey, today was a really great day. It was, I normally have swelling in my ankle, and today I have zero swelling. That's a miracle, right? I mean, those are things we can't really explain. We can guess why, but we don't really know why. So set the intention, do a little visualization. There's a great book on visualization. Did I bring it with me? This one, Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain is her name. Um, but don't get bogged down in the how to's. Just do what you can do. If you can only do 5 minutes and visualize your body healing in some way, then do that because that will all make a difference in any process you're going through. So that would be my final thoughts.
I
Do you have
love
more
the sports
questions?
analogy, and I grew up playing sports, and yeah, like even golfing, when I go to putt, there's times that I just can't get in the zone and I can't visualize the putt and the break and the line and the weight and how the ball's gonna react. And I always miss those putts. But there's other times where I walk up and I don't know, it's like I can see it and I can see how the ball
Yes.
and is gonna go up and come back and fall into the cup, and I can see it and I can see my line and I can see the weight, and I'm in that place, and it's very hard to stay there and get there. That's why you got to practice it, because I think you can get better at it. Michael Jordan was really good at it. That's why he made so many clutch moment shots, and that's why it's Michael Jordan. But yeah, Tiger Woods, like all these guys did visualization, and
Right.
I mean, they're the best in the world, and they probably did more visualization than their opponents, and that's why they were the best in the world. So you're absolutely right. I love the sports analogy. I grew up playing sports. I was always competitive, and I played competitive hockey, and yeah, and I just golf, like all that stuff. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Visualization in sports goes a long way. So it does in the rest of your life too.
It does. It absolutely makes a difference. An expectation, again, the intention, having the expectation, okay, I'm going to do this. Because I can guarantee you, if you walk up to that, you're going to make that golf shot, right? And you say, I'm not going to make this. You won't. I guarantee it. We
Unless you get
all,
lucky.
unless you get lucky. But if you do it enough times in your mind, you will get lucky, right? Or that will be your miracle.
Yeah. And we only
The
need
mind,
one miracle when we're fighting illness, and we can all do it and get there.
right, right. And not to be so dogmatic, not to think I've got to follow this to a T. I've got to be this, just like the carnivore diet, right? Giving yourself permission and being okay with, hey, I went out and ate today and it might have had some seed oil on my steak. It's okay. You'll be okay. Maybe you'll feel crummy for an hour, but you'll be fine. You
You'll
know what I
pay the
mean?
consequences and don't do it again.
But just move on.
Reset and move forward.
Right. Exactly. Don't get too wrapped up in I need to do it in XYZ way. Just if you have 5 minutes, breathe into it and do it. That's it. So those are the
Well,
best.
that's amazing. All right, I think that's good enough for today. That's it's been a pleasure, Stacy. I really
Thank
enjoyed it.
you.
Let's keep in touch, and thanks
Okay.
everybody for watching. This has been really interesting, a little change up from just hammering out cancer. I really enjoyed our time together today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out Stacy's channel, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jason.
Stacy.
Bye.